Let's clear one thing up. Avoidant people aren't cold-blooded. They're not out to wound anyone. They're simply built to protect themselves, and the way they do that? Emotional distance. It's their shield. They pull away, shut down, and convince themselves that staying distant is staying safe, because once upon a time, it was. But the truth we rarely discuss, those walls they build, they're not solid forever. They're pressure chambers, and every moment they suppress how they feel, every connection they sidestep, every word they don't send, the pressure mounts, until one day the structure doesn't just creak, it breaks. Avoidance isn't a choice. It's not a personality flaw. It's a deep survival instinct, born in environments where emotional expression wasn't safe, wasn't seen, or wasn't met with warmth. Maybe in childhood, maybe through heartbreak, but somewhere their nervous system decided closeness is danger, vulnerability equals pain, distance, that's safe. So they don't wake up each morning thinking, I'm going to disconnect. No, they simply default to distance. Their internal wiring is set to guard, not greet. They stay in control, stay hidden, because emotional closeness feels like quicksand. It threatens to pull them into rejection, abandonment, or worse, dependence. That's why when things get intimate, when relationships deepen, their internal alarm goes off, not because you did something wrong, but because their body senses danger even when none exists. This is what confuses people most. The whiplash, warm 1 minute, ice the next. To others, it looks like manipulation. To the avoidant, it's survival mode. They're not strategizing, they're protecting. They want love, but they've been taught that love burns. This battle, the desire for closeness versus the terror of it, rages silently inside. And while it never excuses bad behavior, it does offer understanding. Avoidants often get overwhelmed by emotion. A simple conversation can flood their system, so they disappear, go quiet, shut down. Not because they don't care, but because their body believes shutting down keeps them alive. Healing from this doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience, it takes grace, but it also takes work. The avoidant must see that what once protected them now isolates them, that old defenses don't fit healthy love. Growth looks like therapy, self-awareness, and choosing vulnerability. Slowly, carefully, again and again. For partners of avoidance, don't take their withdrawal personally. Their silence says more about their inner world than it does about your worth. Set boundaries. Hold your emotional ground. You can't pry them open, but you can choose not to abandon yourself in the process. Avoidance isn't an insult, it's armor. But armor doesn't build intimacy, openness does. Eventually, the avoidant faces a decision: stay hidden behind old fears, or step into the open where love lives. Because those walls they built out of fear, they may look like strength, stoicism, independence, but they're really made of pain. Brick by brick, betrayal, abandonment, ridicule shaped that wall. And behind that mask of self-sufficiency is a tender soul that never learned how to feel safe and seen. They're not alone because they want to be. They're alone because being vulnerable feels unbearable. They taught themselves that silence is safer than misunderstanding, that emotional independence is more stable than intimacy. But that mindset is a cage, not a fortress. And if you're in a relationship with someone like this, it's easy to believe the wall is your fault, that you're not enough to be let in. But you didn't build it. It was there long before you arrived. That's why you can't fix it. You can only decide if you want to keep knocking on a door that was bolted shut long ago. Walls may prevent heartbreak, but they also prevent healing. You can't numb pain without also numbing joy. The very emotion avoidants fear, vulnerability, is the one they need most. And silence, it doesn't erase that need, it only postpones it. Behind the scenes, avoidants long for connection, but instead of leaning in, they lean away. They use silence and space not because they're bad, but because those tools once worked. But now, those same tools build distance, not safety. They make the other person feel invisible, not loved. And when intimacy is constantly avoided, trust begins to erode. Relationships don't break from one big fight, they decay slowly in the silence. True vulnerability doesn't mean trauma dumping. It means honesty, clarity, saying, "This is what I feel, this is what I need." That kind of conversation builds connection. Avoiding it only delays the inevitable. And space? It becomes emptiness when used to avoid intimacy. Emotional independence sounds strong until it becomes isolation. The avoidant may think they're protecting themselves, but really, they're starving their soul. Eventually, loneliness speaks louder than silence. Irritation creeps in. Longing resurfaces. The heart wants what the wall has blocked: to be known, to be seen, to belong. But if vulnerability keeps getting postponed, the gap becomes harder to bridge. That's when the partner starts to let go. Not in anger, but in clarity. They begin to protect themselves. They stop chasing, stop over-explaining, stop reaching, not because they don't care, but because they do, about themselves. That's how internal breaking points work. Quiet, subtle. It's not a dramatic goodbye. It's a soft withdrawal that says, "I'm done trying." Avoidants often miss this shift until it's too late. They're used to being pursued, so when the anxious stops showing up with the same energy, the silence becomes uncomfortable in a new way. Now it feels like loss, not power. And that stillness, it's not coldness, it's peace, it's self-respect. It's someone choosing their own healing over the chase. Because eventually, the heart hits its limit, and when that happens, the cycle ends. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. No more. And for the avoidant, that moment can be pivotal, because their patterns no longer work. Their emotional distance no longer shields them from consequences. That shift, that sudden absence, forces them to reflect. For the first time, they're alone with their avoidance. And for those who've grown, who no longer beg, fix, or plead, you become the mirror. Your evolution says, "I've changed. Will you?" Your clarity is louder than confrontation. Your boundaries speak louder than any scream. You didn't change to make them see, but now they do see. What staying the same is costing them. Your healing shines a light on their shadows. Your peace creates contrast, and in that contrast they face a choice: grow or stay stuck. It's once you rise, once you reclaim your worth, the emotional games end. The dance stops. You move forward, not to prove anything, but because peace feels better than chaos ever did. And if they don't follow, that's okay, because healing is personal. Your job was never to fix them. Your only job was to stop abandoning yourself. And if this message brought you any kind of clarity or calm, I invite you gently, no pressure, to support this space. A like, a share, a thoughtful comment, or a quiet subscribe. It helps this message reach someone else who's navigating silent battles they can't explain. You never know who needs to hear this too. Because at the end of it all, growth doesn't shout. It simply becomes. It's not about revenge. It's not about waiting to be chosen. It's about choosing yourself fully, finally, peacefully. You are not responsible for someone else's healing, but you are responsible for protecting your own. And if your quiet transformation creates a ripple in someone else's world, let it. That's how change begins. So if you're still here, thank you. I honor your time, your journey, and your heart. If you ever want to walk this road together again, you know where to find me. Just remember, you are not too much. You were just too open for someone too guarded. And that was never your fault.